Superintendent Dr. Smith, staff, and the community. I'm Denise Sadler, and I'm a longtime staff person in this district, and I've had a chance to watch and participate in many different roles related to education here in Oakland. I speak tonight to share not only the historical background of the Voluntary Resolution Plan, but also here to remind us of the power of history and remembering our past. Sankofa represents the idea of looking to your past with understanding that both the good and the bad has helped you become who you are today. A vehicle to understand and integrate past experiences. We must share our successes, traditions, challenges, and even failures in order to transform the knowledge into innovative practices. So when everybody walked into this building tonight, in the front door is a sign denoting that this is the Paul Robeson building. The board, many years ago, chose to rename the building to remind us as we do our work of how he spoke out against racism, in support of labor, and in support of peace. And he has an interesting and very powerful history in that in 1915, he received a full scholarship from Rutgers. He received a law degree in 1925. And also, I want to remind you that similarly, another African American whose picture you passed by when you walked in this building was Dr. Marcus A. Foster, the first African American superintendent of the Oakland Unified School District, who literally gave his life for the children of Oakland. And as we talk together this evening, I want us all to just take a moment and remember all of those who came before you, who walked these halls, who slept in these halls, who sat in these chairs. There are many people who stood up for our community, who heightened and focused on African American students and some of the many challenges that we faced. There are many people who walked in this room, who sat in these chairs, who fought for equitable education and treatment of students. So as we think about the Voluntary Resolution Plan, I want you to remember the history. Remember not only this plan, but remember the history in Oakland of all the different kinds of action that people took so that people could heighten the support and education of not only African American students, but all students. I want you to remember someone who stood up in 1993, Mr. Oscar Wright, who founded Buffer, the organization that filed a complaint with the Office of Civil Rights, and very specifically about the Civil Rights Act in 1964, Title VI. And there were three main issues. It wasn't only about discipline. It was about tracking. And Mr. Wright talked about this very eloquently and has continued to talk about it. He talked about there were three tracks. There was the university track, there was the middle track, and there was a track for skills. And that's where most of our, and what he would say black students, not African American students, were in that track. He also highlighted in this suit, and on many occasions at board meetings, the disproportionate number of African American students suspended, and suspended for defiance and interpretation of what defiance was for African American students was different than it was for other students. And lastly, the other area, the third area that was in the suit was related to equitable distribution of general purpose funds, the amount of funds that were spent in certain schools and other schools. Now, what happened after that suit? There were some actions taken, and I really want to remind us, because we really need to go back and reflect on some of the details. There was work around school climate, and looking at that, and at that time, the director of the Family and Community Services was Josefina Alvarado Mena, who worked very hard to establish programs for parent participation, social skills, conflict mediation, and peer counseling. Now, it was just a very, very beginning of addressing those issues. There was a requirement, there was a video made that reviewed the history that every single school was required to show during that time, and there were many discussions. There were special trainings for teachers on classroom management and discussions around school and work environment. Now, that was just the beginning. I want us all to reflect on this voluntary resolution plan and note that there were many things that people addressed, and there were many actions that were taken by this board. If you look at board actions, there was the establishment of an African American task force that even went more deeply into looking at data and what we were doing as a district. I also want to reflect on I very often look at the words of Dr. Marcus Foster, and as I complete my remarks tonight, I want to think about some of his words as he discussed the issues related to the differences in how students were treated and issues related to the success in this community. He felt very strongly that education would be the key to making a difference for this community surviving and for this community to be a place of peace. So he said, I want to quote, "When the pieces are in place, when we are done with the temporary preoccupations and the catchphrases, when we feel the power and exhilaration of real movement toward our objectives, then will come an important realization. Our success will come not because of board directives or the superintendent's notions or the staff's creativity or the community's yearning. We will make it because we have common sense to draw on each other and the audacity to believe in that concert. We are equal to the great task." And I feel very strongly about that, and this new voluntary resolution plan addresses more deeply those issues and moves us to the next level. Thank you.
Thank you very much.